How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Chav Zayin, Daf 27 of Masechta BavaBasra. Friends, we are going to finish the second pack of Masechta BavaBasra. There's some interesting stuff, a little shtickle math. Do you have people like math? I might need your help. I might need your help a little bit at one point. I have to remember all the... there's math that I don't know offhand, so I have to see if I remember the numbers. And I remember I use my phone as like I use my other phone for like a backup recording in case I need it. So I don't know if I'm going to use it as a calculator. But I have another phone. I can use that as a calculator. Let's see. Yeah, maybe I should keep this on hand. Wait, what's this? Oh, gewaldig. Okay, where's the calculator function? Calculator. Okay, yeah, all right, that's good. I have a calculator here. I'll probably use this. Well, yeah, maybe I'll take out the calculator soon. So shtickle math in today's stuff. All right, here we go. Yeah. Okay. All right. Here we go. So we got some work to do on Daf Chav Vav Mud Beis already. And then we're just going to go from there to the end of the parak. Let's do it. Okay, we're going to start on Chav Beis Amud Beis, about 10 or so lines from the bottom at the two dots. Omar Ula, says the Rebbe Ula, Ilono Somuch Lemeitzer. So a tree that is close to the border of his field, I guess. Besoch Sheish Esrei Amma, within 16 amis of somebody else's field. Gazlon hu. He's a thief. He's a gazlon. He's a thief. If he has his tree within 16 amas of his friend's field, ve'ein mevin mimenu bikurim. And wait, let me just think for a second. Sorry, it's just gonna make sure. Yeah, I think I'm good. Ve'ein mevin mimenu bikurim, and we don't. So Rashi says we don't need to bring bikurim from it. What does that say? Ve'imavim bikurim ein tzarich lavim imenu bikurim to be in ashatovim me'artzecha me'artzecha. Which one is it, friends? Should we flip a coin? Meish is pri adam asher tavim me'artzecha. Artzecha? Me'artzecha. Chavre, which one is it? Oh, I have the article. Oh no, but I don't think we quoted it in there. All right. Let's see. Does it say it? I have to flip back a few pages there. Let's see. Does it say? Maybe Rashi quotes the pasuk. Come on, turn. These pages don't turn good. Come on, turn. Okay. Let's see. Does it say anything? Me'artzecha. Me'artzecha. Gewaldig. Me'artzecha. All right. Anyway, so therefore, I guess if you're stealing it, so then I guess it's potter from. Bikurim, you wouldn't have to bring bikurim. So Ula is saying that if you plant your tree within 16 amas of somebody else's field, so then you potter from bikurim, which is a big chiddush, right? He's saying that because of this you don't have to bring bikurim. All right. So minale leula ha. So now where does Ula get this magic 16 from? How does he know this, that it needs to be 16 amas away? Maybe it comes from the following Mishnah. If you have an area of a beisah is 50 amas by 50 amas, right? Because the courtyard of the Mishnah was beisah asayim, two beisahs, and that was 100 by 50. So one beisah is 50 by 50. So if this is Erev Shemitah, it's about to be Shemitah, so if you have an area 50 amas by 50 amas, and there's 10 trees in that area, you could plow the whole field regularly up until the Shemitah year begins, up until Rosh Hashanah. So now if you do the math, and Rashi actually says it in an interesting way, I thought it was interesting. So how do you find the area of a square? You multiply a square is all the same sides, right? But even like a rectangle, I guess you multiply the two sides by each other. So 50 times 50 is 2,500. Rashi kind of says it in an interesting way. So for 50 amas by 50 amas, so the area is 2,500, and he says you could think about it as if you cut up the field into 1 amma strips and then put them as like one really long one, it would be 2,500 amas long. Right? If you would take up all the area, right? Imagine if you like cut up the field into 251 amma, 250 1 amma wide strips by 250 amas long, and you line those all up, that would be 2,500 amas. So now, and we have 10 trees in there. So if you would lay out those 10 trees on this really long strip, on this 2,500 amas strip, so each tree would have 250 amas worth of space. Okay? So basically in that field, 50 amas by 50 amas, with an area of 2,500 and 10 trees in there, each one would get 250 amas worth of space. So now the thing is, Ula was talking about one tree needing 16 amas essentially in all directions, right? Because let's say the field is surrounded on all sides, so you're going to have 16 amas in each direction, which means essentially 16 amas to the right, 16 amas to the left, 16 amas up, 16 amas down, right above and below, whatever. So that's be'etzem a 32 by 32 square. And we're saying for one tree, you need a 32 by 32 area, which is 1,024. So that's way more, right? So this Mishnah is saying that each tree would require 250 amas, but Ula is saying it requires 1,024 amas. And the thing is, aside from the fact that the math is way off, but Ula is also, it's a kula, because we're saying that as if this tree is any closer than 1,024 amas, within a 1,024 amas area, so if it's any less than that, then you don't have to bring bikurim. Whereas really 250 from this Mishnah would sound like is the number that you wouldn't bring bikurim. So, meaning if it's less than 250. So again, so minod le'ula. So where does Ula get this essentially 32 by 32 theory from? Ilema midetnan, right, for one tree. Ilema midetnan eser netiyas amfuzaris besoch beis soya choshin kol beis soya b'shvila nadu Rosh Hashanah. If it's from that Mishnah that talks about a beis so'a, which is 50 by 50, and there's 10 trees in there, well, kama havu lehu trei alfin v'chomesh mea garmidi. So a beis so'a is 50 amas by 50 amas, which comes out to an area of 2,500. L'chochad v'chad kama motilei, and since you have 10 trees in there, how much is each tree getting? Mosin v'chamshin, 250 amas worth. Haloy have du'ula, that's way less than Ula's. Rather, it's from the following Mishnah: Shlosha ilanis shel gimel bnei adam, 3 trees belonging to 3 people. Hare elu mitztarfin, they could join together. V'chorshin kol beisa b'shvilon, and Gozabach adds Ada Atzeres, and you can plow the entire beisa on account of these 3 trees until Shavuos. Okay, Kama avalu. Trey alfe v'hei meos gamide. Okay, so a beisa is 50 amas by 50 amas. That's 2,500 amas of area. The chochad kama moti lay, and since there are 3 trees in there, what's 2,500 divided by 3? It says it. Okay. Chochad kama moti lay. Tamne mea v'tlosim v'tilsa. V'tlasa v'tilsa. Again, tamne mea v'tlasim v'tlasa v'tilsa, 833 and a third. Right? 800 times 3 is 2,400. 33 times 3 is 99. A third times 3 is 1. So, okay. So Ula is saying 1,024, and with this Mishnah is arriving at 833 and a third. So Akati nefisha le Ula, still Ula's amount is larger. Ula's amount is larger. So it's still going to be a problem. Lo dak. So the Gemara says, well, Ula wasn't being so specific. 833, 1024, come on, chill out. It's basically the same. Emur da amrinon lo dak lechumr. The kula lo dak mi amrinon. To which the Gemara says, one second. Okay, if you want to say lo dak, if you want to say, okay, it wasn't being precise, so maybe it wasn't being precise. If you could say you're not being precise, you're giving an imprecise number if it's to be stringent. But to give an imprecise number to be lenient, to say that, so to say that anything less than 1,024 amis, you're potter from bringing bikurim, when really anything above 833 and a third, you should have to bring bikurim? How could Ula just be sort of not specific in a way that is going to be lenient? You can't do that. So now says the Gemara, Misovert biribua ko amrinon, bi'igula ko amrinon. The Gemara mentions a gewaltige point. If you think about it, what's Ula saying? Ula is saying that you have to make sure that there's 16 amis in all directions. Right, that the tree has 16 amis in all directions before it gets to another field. Right, that there's a buffer of 16 amis from the tree to somebody else's field. So 16 amis in all direction will give you if you take 16 amis and walk around and it's 16 amis away from the tree at all times, that's a circle, that's not a square. A square, the corners are going to be more than 16 amis away. So Ula is really talking about a circle, it's not talking about a square. So, okay, let's go back to for a second. And now we're going to do some Gemara math. Michdei kaba miruba yoser ala igul revia. Pashalu zayin mea v'shisim v'tmanya. So, if you have a square that's 32 by 32, right, because the diameter is 32 and the radius is 16, so we're saying the radius is 16 in all directions, obviously, because it's a circle. And that would fit inside of a square whose sides are 32 by 32. So the area of the square we can get by multiplying 32 by 32, which is 1,024. What would be the area of the circle within the square? So in Gemara math, it is 75% of the circle is 75% of the square. In non-Gemara math, in the math that we learn in school, it has something to do with pi. I don't know what it has to do with pi, but it has something to do with pi. Maybe it's like 2 pi r. What's 2 pi r? Radius? Maybe. Is 2 pi r a thing? What would that mean? Like pi times 2 times radius? I don't know. But anyways, you somehow use pi, I think. But we're not going to use pi. We're going to just do the Gemara way, which is like easier, which is 0.75 of the square. So if the square is 1,024, 75% of that would be, well, the Gemara tells us. So I actually don't need a calculator because all the numbers are given to us by the Gemara. That would be, so Pashlu, Zayin Mea, 700, Veshisin Vitmania, and 68. There you go. 700, so 75% of 1,024 is 768. Okay, so this is taka better. So that Mishnah that we quoted, right, with the Beis Sa'ah that has 3 trees in it, and each tree takes up 833 and a third, it has like sort of 833 and a third of area around it. And Ula is saying that a tree needs an area of 768, which is less than 833. So now, Akati Pashle Palga de Amsa. So, but still, it's not, Ula is saying 768. The Mishnah is saying 833 and a third. So the Gemara says something kind of funny, which is that it's half an amma off, meaning the Mishnah's thing of 833 and a third would not be a circle with a radius of 16. It would be a circle with a radius of 16 and a half. Which if you do the math, here I'll take out the calculator. So if you do the math of, so 16 and a half times 2 is 33. So if you do 33 times 33 equals 1,089. Let's see, can you just do that? So times, can you do that? 0.75. Yeah, exactly. So if you would add a half in amma, so make it 16 and a half radius, which means that the area of the circle would then be 816, not 833 and a third. So it's not exactly exact, but Rashi mentions it. But anyways, the point is that Ula's number still is not correct, right? Ula's talking about 768, whereas the Mishnah was talking about 833 and a third. So Anu Dilodak. Okay, but here now we could say, you know what, Ula wasn't being specific. Right? The Gemara is saying that really that Mishnah would require, I guess, 16 and a half Amos in all directions. We want to argue, even though it's not exactly right. But Ula wasn't being, he said 16 Amos and Vilchumra Lodak. And in this case, he's being more stringent. Meaning Ula is saying that if you plant it within less than 768, so then you don't bring. So then you don't have to bring bikurim. But anything more than that, so he's saying you would, even though technically you still wouldn't have to, even for a little bit more. But he was being more stringent. So that's the deal with Ula and his 16 Amos in a circle, and he's being actually more stringent than that Mishnah. Where's that Mishnah? In Shvius. About the Beisa with the 3 trees in it. Alright, let's go weiter. Okay, Tashma, come in here. Akone Ilan Vikarko, somebody who purchases a tree and its property, the property that it's on. Maybe Vikare, so he brings Bikurim, and he could say the Parsha of Mikr, he could say Mikr Bikurim, Arami Ovid Avi. My love, Kosher, we want to assume what that means is a tree and any amount of property, even if it's less than 16 Amos, you could still say Mikr Bikurim. Lo Yudvav Ama Nisht. It has to be 60. Yeah, there has to be 16 Amos between the tree and the field, and then you could bring. You could say Mikr Bikurim. Tashmakam near Kana Shnei Ilonis Besoch Shel Chavero Mevi Venu Kore. If a person purchases 2 trees in his friend's field, so he brings bikurim, but he doesn't say mikra bikurim. Ha shlosha maybe vikar, but if he purchases 3 fields, so then he brings bikurim, and he also says mikra bikurim. My love koshu, and what that means is, I think the point is that once you purchase 3 fields, then you also purchase property with it. What does Rashi say? Right, he says that Rashi says then you also purchase, I guess, the property that it's on. So you want to say my love koshu, that you acquire any amount of the property, and you could still say mikra bikurim lo hachanami yudvavama. Here also no, he's purchasing at least 16 amas around it. All right, and that's why I could say mikra bikurim. Fine. Tashma, come here. Akiva says, Akiva karka kolshu, any amount of property. Chay bepeya, you have to separate part of it. You have to leave part of it for the poor people of bikurim, and you also have to bring bikurim. The chosven all of pruzbol, and you can write a pruzbol, right? In order for if Shimon lends Reuven $1,000 and Shemitah is coming, so they write a pruzbol. Reuven has to have a certain amount of property, so we say even a kolshu, any amount is enough to be able to make a. There has to be a certain amount that's like meshubah to the loan. So even a kolshu would be enough. V'niknin iman chasum shed lo emachrais. Also, if you have property any size, even the smallest amount, you could, right? So of course we know from Masechta Kiddushin that nechasum she ein lemachrais niknin nechasum sheish achrais because of shtar uvchazoko. So that property could be any amount. So So Rabbi Akiva says that karka kolshu, and we're saying that you'd bring bikurim. So b'ma'askinan well, here we're talking about wheat specifically, and not like trees. Dekanam dekatani kolshu shmamina, right? Also it says kolshu, any amount. So wheat can grow like on any amount. So we're specifically talking about wheat there, and you'd be able to bring bikurim from that. It's one of the shivas aminim. Tashma, come in here. Ilan miktoso ba'aretz miktoso b'chutzlaretz. If you have a tree that is partially in Eretz Yisrael and partially in chutzlaretz, tevel v'chulim aravin zeboza divrei Rebbe. So Rebbe says you can't eat the fruit. Well, you have to assume that the fruits are tevel, okay? Because part of the tree is in Eretz Yisrael, part of the tree is in chutzlaretz. you have to assume that, right. You can't just say, well, this part is tevel and this part is chulin. No, you can't do that. Whereas Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, no, what do you mean? If half the tree is in Eretz Yisrael and then half the tree is in Bavel, so the part that's in Eretz Yisrael will be tevel, the part that's in Bavel would be chulin. So now the machlokus is only that Rebbe says let's say this. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says yesh breira. Right, breira, of course, we know about that. Can you kind of Photoshop, say after the fact that this is what it was meant to be. Meaning, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says you can eat half the fruits, and memela the fruit, the half that you're eating right now are the chulin half, the parts that were in chutz la'aretz. Whereas Rabbi says you can't say that. You can't say that breira over here, and therefore all of the fruits are considered tevel. Aval godel b'ptur divrei akol potter. But if the entire tree, however, grew in chutz la'aretz, even though the branches might be right next to, even though the roots might be right next to the border, and there's no 16 amas, everybody would agree, right? It sounds like Rebbe and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel would both agree that that there would be no problem. That would be considered chulin. Well, here what's talking about is there is rock between on the border there between Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz. So the branches that are in Eretz Yisrael are mamish sticking in Eretz Yisrael. The branches that are in Chutz La'aretz are mamish sticking in Chutz La'aretz. So therefore, so that is why the part that's in Chutz La'aretz would be chulin. But meaning. Maybe I didn't get that right. Meaning, wait 1 second. Anyways, okay. Anyways, no, I think you can even say not necessarily that the whole tree is in chutz la'aretz, but meaning the point is that machlokas between Rebbe and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is just do you say breira or not, right? But if you knew for sure though which ones were in Eretz Yisrael, which ones were in chutz la'aretz, so then that would be okay. But why? So we say, well, because there was a rock in the middle to make sure that none of the chutz la'aretz trees were getting sustenance from Eretz Yisrael because there was a rock there. All right. If that's the case, my time with the Rebbe. Well, if there was a rock there preventing any of the chutz la'aretz roots from getting into Eretz Yisrael and from nurturing from Eretz Yisrael, so then why does Rebbe say that you can't eat the chutz la'aretz ones? Why do you have to treat them as tevel? So the Hadri Arve. Well, what's the base there? Base where okay. Well, because enochinami that there's that underground, the roots are divided by this rock that's in the middle, and therefore the Eretz Yisrael roots are in Eretz Yisrael and the Bav roots are in Bav. The Chutz La'aretz roots are in Chutz La'aretz. But once they come out to the world, the tree itself is unified. So that kind of unifies them and mixes it all together, and therefore you can't eat. You have to assume that they're all tevel. This is the machlokas. My sover avir mevalbel, my sover ayluchudika v'ayluchudika. That Rebbe assumes that once the tree comes up and is now no longer in the ground and it's one tree, so then it's all mixed together. Whereas Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says no. If all the nurturing comes from the roots, and if the roots are separated by a rock, and the Eretz Yisrael part is getting nurtured from Eretz Yisrael, and the Chutz La'aretz part is getting nurtured from Chutz La'aretz, so you can treat the Chutz La'aretz ones as chulin and the Eretz Yisrael ones as tevel. Okay, so Ula says that you have to distance the tree 16 amas from your friend's field, but that's it. Not more than that. That we have to distance the tree from a pit 25 amas because the roots can go 25 amas. So Rabbi says, Rabbi Mazel Tuva Azle, sure, the roots can go pretty far. But lo makreshe elo ad shesh esrei ama tfei lo makreshe. But they would only what does that say? They would only weaken and actually be nurturing from your friend's field up until 16 amas. After that, already I guess they're not. After 16 amas, they're not. I guess getting so much nutrients and being particularly active. Kiosar of Dimi Omar, when Rav Dimi came from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, he said, from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, he said, Amar Ba Mine Rish Lakish, Rav Yochanan, Rish Lakish asked Rav Yochanan, Ilan Asamuch Lemeitzer, B'Seich Yudvav Ama, a tree that is close to the border, within 16 Amas, Mau, what's the halacha? Amalei, Rav Yochanan says, Gazlanu, he is a Gazlan, Ved Mevin, Mevenu Bikurim, you don't need to bring Bikurim from that tree. Kiosar Ravin, Amar Rav Yochanan, when Ravin came, says in the name of Rav Yochanan, Echad Ilan Asamuch Lemeitzer, whether it's a tree that is close to the border, Echad Ilan Anote, and whether it's a tree that the branches lean over the border. Maybe Vikore, you bring the Bikurim and you say Arami Ovid Ovi Shal Manas Kain. I guess meaning the border of your friend's field. Shal Manas Kain Hinchi Yoshua Lisol Saaris, because it's for this reason, right? This is the condition under. This is why Joshua brought the Yidden into Eretz Yisrael, so that we could all be chilled out, right? And if you have a tree next to your friend's border, even if it's within 16 amas, or the branches are leaning over the border with your friend, you could still bring Bikurim, because after all, this is why Joshua bequeathed Eretz Yisrael to the Yidden, so we could be chilled out, and we could say, okay, I know that your root's going to my field of shtickle. It's all right. Don't worry about it. And I woke up this morning. I woke up last night. Maybe you could say. And when I woke up outside in the park outside, mamash balagan. It was like you can imagine music, but not talking about music from a phone, like proper speakers. 2:15 in the morning. This isn't like an official party. It's just like these people. I guess they go party in the shuk, and then they come to our backyard, and then they brought speakers and people, and it was like mamash, like a party at 2:15 in the morning. So okay, that's life around here. And then I was doing chazara on this good morning, and I saw on this Gemara, and I said, this is why Yoshua brought the Yidden to Eretz Yisrael, so that they could party out at all hours of the night, in the garden, in the park outside the house, and it's all good. The neighbors should just chill out. After all, that's why Yoshua brought the Yidden to Eretz Yisrael, so that the neighbors can just chill the heck out, and the people can party, and just chill out, people. Says the Mishnah, Ilan shu note listei chavero. So a tree that is leaning into his friend's field, kotzeitz milo amardea al gabe ha machresha. So he's got to cut down. So he cuts down the branches enough so that an ox goad can be lifted upon the plow. Because if a guy is what's an ox goad? I think it's the thing that maybe you hit an ox with. So then I guess if you have, like, your friend's tree is like going into your field, and you need to be moving around the field with your ox and whacking it with an ox goad, and you're unable to whack it with the ox goad because the trees get in the way. So you can cut down those branches so that you can whack the ox without any interference. And in terms of if it's a boxer, a carob tree, it's a carob tree or a sycamore tree, which have a lot of branches. Kineged mashkoles, you can use a what was that word again? So there was some fancy name, but basically it means you can cut down all the trees from the border. Any trees going into your property, you could just cut down. What's this mashkolas thing? Let me find the definition. Oh wow, we're far. Okay, mashkolas. Okay, a plumb line. A plumb line. I don't know. It's something that makes like a straight line. So so you could just cut all the trees that are invading your property, like all the branches, you could just cut them down. If it's a sycamore or a carob tree that have lots of branches. All right. Beis hashlochin. Okay, if you have a field that requires irrigation, kol ha'ilon kineged amashkoles, so any trees that are invading the property from your neighbor's property, you could just cut any invading branches with like a plumb line. Any invading branches coming into the property, just cut them all down. Take a saw and just go straight line. Abishol omer kol ilon srak kineged amashkoles, any non-fruit bearing trees, you could just cut down all the branches, all the invading branches. The shaila is Abishol, as the Gemara is about to ask, is Abishol going on the Reisha of the Mishnah? That the Reisha had said specifically carob and sycamore trees, you can cut down all invading branches, whereas Abishol is extending that to say all non-fruit bearing trees, you can cut down all the branches. Or is he going on the Seifa and kind of limiting it, right? Beis Hashlachin kol ha'ilon kineged amashkoles, that by Beis Hashlachin, a field that requires irrigation, so then any tree, you can just cut down all the branches. Says Abishol, no, only non-fruit bearing trees. So that's the shaila. What's he going on? He the Asakashas is the Gemara. Abishol, when it comes to Abishol, a Reisha koyo a Seifa koyo, is he going on the Reisha to sort of expand the Reisha and say it's not just sycamore and carob, but any non-fruit bearing trees, you could just cut down all the branches. Or on the Seifa, where it says all trees in a Beis Hashlachin, you can cut down all the branches, whereas Abishol is limiting it to non-fruit bearing trees. Tashma Kamanir the Tanya, we learn in Beis Hashlachin, when it comes to a Beis Hashlachin, Abishol, Mrs. Abishol, kol ha'ilon kineged amashkoles, mipnei shatzel ra'al Beis Hashlachin, all trees, any trees, all trees. In a Beis Hashlachin, you can cut down all invading branches. So we see Shmamina, Areisha Koy Shmamina. So we see that Abishol is in agreement with the Seifa of the Mishnah that in a Beis Hashlachin, all trees, you can cut down all invading branches, which means that when he says non-fruit bearing trees, it's talking about the Reisha, where it says that all invading branches can be cut down from carob and sycamore trees. Says Abishol that actually applies to all non-fruit bearing trees. Amar Rav Ashi Masnisan Namideka. Rav Ashi says you can also actually infer this from Mishnah Diktani kol ilan srak. Abishol says that all ilan sraks, you can cut down all of the invading branches, and the lashon of all makes sense as sort of expansive, not as limiting. Right, so Yomad B'Shloma Areisha Koi, that makes sense if you're saying it's going on the Reisha, that the Reisha said you can cut down all of the branches only of sycamore and carob trees, and he says kol ilan. He says no, actually all non-fruit bearing trees you can cut down all the branches. Eli Yomad Aseifa Koi, but if you say it's going on the Seifa, but if you say it's going on the Seifa, but if you say that it's going on the Seifa, where it says that in a Beis Hashlachin, all trees you can cut down all branches, and Abishol is coming to limit it to non-fruit bearing trees. Well, Aseifa koi ilan srak mi boile. You should just say ilan srak, that it's limited to non-fruit bearing trees. Ella la, right? But why did it say kol ilan srak? So ella lav shmamina areisha koi shmamina. Rather, it must be talking about the reisha, where it says only sycamore and carob, and he says no, kol ilan srak. It refers to all non-fruit bearing trees. And the final Mishnah in the second parak of Masechta BavaBasra, Ilan Shu Note L'Rishus Harabim, a tree that its branches overhang Rishus Harabim Kotzetz Kidei She'egomel Over V'Rochbo. So you cut down the branches until it gets to a point where a camel camel can pass under the tree together with its driver on it. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says, Rabbi Yehuda, Gomel To'un Pishton O Chavile Zmaros, whereas Rabbi Yehuda says you cut down enough branches so that a camel can get by under it when it's laden with flax or other sticks and branches and things. Reb Shimon Omer says, Reb Shimon kola ilon kineged amashkoles mipnei atuma. Reb Shimon says that every tree you just cut down all the branches that overhang Rishus Harabim, because we have to be concerned about tuma sa'ol. We're going to get to there in a few minutes. Says the Gemara, Man tana de benizokin basar umdino de hashto azlinon. Who is the Tana who says that we go based on the current evaluation, right? Meaning we're saying that you can cut down the branches. Now the branches are going to end up growing back in the future, but it's all right as long as you make it, you cut down the branches so that now, there's enough space either for the camel and the rider or for the camel with the flax. Then that would be enough, even though it's going to grow back. Rish Lakish says it's machlokas chacham Rabbi Eliezer, and this is like Rabbi Eliezer. The Tanan, as we learn in the Mishnah, ein osin cholo tachas rishus harabim paris sichon umayris. You can under rishus harabim you cannot make pits, ditches, and vaults. Rabbi Eliezer matir bichdei shtei eglo agola me'aleches v'tuna avonim. Rabbi Eliezer says, look, as long as it's sturdy enough that a wagon carrying stones, filled up with stones, can pass over this pit, ditch, or vault without it collapsing, then that would be acceptable. So Rabbi Eliezer is saying, look, even though, over time there might be wear and tear, and it might not be strong enough in the future, but as long as right now it's strong enough, then that would be acceptable. So we see that that this Mishnah, which says just cut down the trees that are necessary to, for now, that would be like Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yochanan Rama says, Rabbi Yochanan, afilu temer rabbanon, you can even say, the rabbanon hasum zimni demafchis v'lav adaite. The difference is that by the case of the pit, ditch, and vault in Rishus Harabim, it could be that the structure is going to weaken and people won't realize, and it could fall in. So that is why they say no. But over here by the trees, kama kokayit say, look, you'll see it. As the trees are growing back and it becomes difficult for the camels to get by, so you cut them down again. So you'll be able to, as they kind of grow, you can cut them down. So even the Rabbanon would say that is acceptable, but by the tunnel, how are you supposed to know that the structure is getting weaker? It's hard to tell. So therefore, they're stringent there, but they might over here say that you could just cut down those branches. Rabbi Yehuda had said, "Gamoton pishton no chavile izmoros." So the Chacham had said that you have to cut down enough trees so that a camel can get through with a rider on it. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees and says that a camel can get through when it's laden with flax or with sticks. So the shaila is, which is higher? Which is higher up? Which is a bigger amount of space? Which, is a camel with a rider higher off the ground, or a camel laden with flax and twigs higher off the ground? And, which one would you have to cut off more branches? So Ibarlu Shi'ur de Reb Yehuda Nafish or de Mashir de Rabbanan Nafish. Which amount is larger? Reb Yehuda's shear, the laden camel, or the Rabbanan's shear, the riding camel? So Pshita de Shi'ur de Rabbanan Nafish. It must be that the rabbi's amount is the larger amount. The Isal Kadaitech Shi'ur de Reb Yehuda Nafish. Because if you say that Rabbi Yehuda's amount is the larger amount, well then, Rabbanon b'shi'ura Rabbi Yehuda heichi avde. Okay, so if you say that the Rabbi Yehuda's amount, that the camel with that's laden, is a higher thing, well then, again, it's a tiny bit confusing, but okay. So we're saying that the rabbi's shear is the camel with the person riding it. Rabbi Yehuda's shear is the camel that's laden up with stuff. So the question is, which is the higher shear? So we're saying it must be that the rabbi's shear is the higher shear. Why must it be that the rabbi's shear is the higher shear? Well, because if Rabbi Yehuda's shear is the higher shear, okay, well then, meaning so if a camel with stuff on it is higher than a camel with a rider, well then, according to the rabbis, what would happen if a camel comes by laden with stuff? Right? If we're saying that, according to the rabbis, it just needs to be a camel with a rider on it, and they disagree with Rabbi Yehuda. Now, Rabbi Yehuda says there has to be a camel with stuff on it. If Rabbi Yehuda's shear is higher, well then, what would the rabbis do if somebody comes through in Rosh Hashanah with a camel with stuff on it? So therefore, it would get stuck, right? It's like when a truck goes through a tunnel that's not high enough. It's just going to get stuck. So rather, it must be that the rabbi's shear is higher than Rabbi Yehuda's shear, so that it would be able to handle both a camel with a rider as well as a camel laden with stuff. It would be high enough for both. Where am I? So where am I? So Pshita Teshud Rabbanan Nafish is like Teshud Rabbi Yehuda Nafish, Rabbanan B'Shud Rabbi Yehuda, Hechi Avdi ve'elamai. But then can't you ask the same question on Rabbi Yehuda? Shir the Rabbanan Nafish. So we're saying that the rabbi's shir is larger. Rabbi Yehuda B'Shir the Rabbanan, my Ovid. Well then, can you ask the same question on Rabbi Yehuda? So if you say that the rabbi's shir is larger, and Rabbi Yehuda's shir is smaller, so Rabbi Yehuda says it only needs to be a camel laden with stuff, and if we say that that is a lower shir, well then, according to Rabbi Yehuda, what are you supposed to do when a camel comes by with a rider? He's going to bump his head. So, the difference between a laden camel and a camel with a person is that a person can bend down and do a shtickle limbo and try to avoid bumping his head. Sticks and flax, they don't move so good on their own. They're just kind of lie there. So therefore, it would make sense to say that the rabbi's shir is the larger shir because it would work both for their own shir as well as Rabbi Yehuda's shir. Yeah. And then, right, meaning a camel with a rider is higher than a camel laden with stuff. So now you can ask, Rabbi Yehuda, so why would you say a camel laden with stuff if it's a smaller shir? What do you do if somebody comes by riding it that's higher up? Well, it could just bend over. All right, fine. Rabbi Shimon Omer says, Rabbi Shimon kol ha'ilon kenegna mashkoles mipnei atuma. You can cut down all the branches that are over Rosh Hashanah because of tumas ha'oel. Tanu pnei oel atuma. So we learn a brayso because of tumas ha'oel that if there's a kazayis min ames in Rosh Hashanah and there's a branch over it and somebody walks under the branch that's covering the kazayis mibsar ames, so you can be tummy tumas ha'oel. So, Pshita, that's obvious. It says it because we're concerned about Tuma. Even if it would only have our Mishnah, it doesn't specifically say Tuma. So, Amino, Dimamaisi, Orev, Timea, Vishadi Hosum, Visaga Bidechalule. Well, if we only have our Mishnah, I might think that the concern in the Mishnah is that a crow might come with a kazayis min ames and drop it on the tree and it'll get stuck in the branches, and anybody who walks under that tree will become tamei tumas ha'oel. But so long as you just cut down, let's say, half of the branches, every other one, so then it can fall through to the ground, and then I guess that specific tumah wouldn't be an issue. So, Kamash Malon, that, even that is also not good because we're concerned that maybe it'll fall to the ground and then a branch will be over it, or be on the ground, the branch will be over it, and then there's going to be tumas ha'oel that way as well, and therefore just cut down all the branches that are invading the space of Rosh Hashanah. Hadran Allah lo yachbor, that was Perek lo yachbor. Wow, it got kind of technical at the end, but all right. The first part of the Gemara talked about Ula and his 16 amis, and where do we get there, and this shtickle math and stuff, and then we got up to some technical stuff about like cutting down branches and stuff. Tomorrow we're going to start the third parak of Masechta BavaBasra, parak Chezkas Sabatim. So I'll see you there. Peace out.